This is The Strategist, episode 1892. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Stephen Carter and Shannon Phillips. How are you, friends?
Oh, I'm having the best day. It's been fantastic.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm cleaning out my basement.
Is that, and that's nothing to do with the live show, which, by the way, we're not talking about.
No, you know what? I don't feel like promoting the live show anymore. Everybody knows that it's happening.
Sorry, to be clear, that's why we don't want to talk about it. It's just we've gotten some feedback.
We're done.
People have been like, even Shannon was going too hard on the live show promo.
Yeah,
people have said Shannon,
stop.
So we're going to stop. We're going to stop promoting the live show.
Okay with you, Shannon?
Yeah, it's fine. I find that rude, but okay. Yeah.
Get ready for the podcast throwdown of the year. It's the live taping of The Strategist. Wednesday, November 12th. Knox United Church, 7:30 p.m. sharp. Tickets starting at just $30. Grab yours now at strategistlive.show. One night, one stage, 0 do-overs. Be there.
Yeah, no. I mean, welcome to our listeners.
Yeah.
They are a rude bunch, especially those that don't pay.
Oh, man,
I feel like there's a group of people that don't pay to listen to us that are very rude. And then there's a group of people that pay that are extremely nice. And then there's a group of people that pay and are very rude, and we like them the most, Carter, to be clear. Yeah,
it's
and those
true.
are the people attending the VIP event, which, by the way, I'm not going to talk about. 6:30 p.m., there'll be a whole thing. It's catered, apparently. The economics make no sense. Carter's explained it to us off air. They make no sense whatsoever.
No, but it's catered.
You used the word loss leader in a way that I don't think you know and fully understand the definition of.
You know what? Saying you're verging on promo.
Oh yeah, true. I vote promo. Speaking of things, speaking of someone, let's spend the entire. My plan is to spend the entire episode on someone that could use a little promo, that could use a little bit of TLC.
Okay.
That person, Shannon, is one Pierre Poilievre. He has not had a good week, has he, Shannon?
He has not. He has had a terrible week, in fact. No good, very bad time.
Carter, listen, there's process and then there's outcome. Let's talk about outcome first, and then we can talk about the shitty process week that he's had as well. The outcome is that he's lost one MP. He had another resign, who I suspect they've convinced to stay, last I have heard, unless you guys have heard otherwise. This is Matt Genereux, to stay until April. So Genereux's sticking around until April, not leaving. So, as we relate it to the majority-minority math for Mr. Mark Carney, that number does not play the role we thought it did when we recorded our breaking news episode on Matt Genereux. And then they've also had a really shitty process week with articles coming out around their culture, their bullying culture. And let's not forget Andrew Scheer also coming out and saying the reason that one Mr. Matt Genereux left is liberal scare tactics, that the liberals finally got to him. The people who are incompetent in politics became very good at it and picked off Matt Genereux off the Conservative caucus. Carter, not a good week.
No, it's a no good, horrible, terrible week for Pierre Poilievre, and it's on top of kind of a not so great time since the election. I mean, as we know, he lost his seat. He had to seek a new seat in the liberal stronghold of Battle River Crowfoot.
Battle River Crowfoot. Liberals go battling there and they lose. They get 5 to 6%. Generally.
I mean, it was pathetic that's where he was, where he found himself. But that's been his year. It's not like this is a guy who's been riding a high who all of a sudden had a bad week. This is a guy who was 20 points ahead prior to the election, who lost the election, and who is continuing to have bad time.
Yeah, and I want to spend a bit of time with the two of you helping Pierre Poilievre out. But I guess before we help him out, like we could help him out for this week. Like that's an episode we could do, right? How to help Pierre Poilievre with the Matt Genereux and Chris D'Entremont situation. That is a thing we could do. But I want to almost leave it up to the two of you in terms of how and what help you think this guy needs. I'm almost kind of asking you to put your consulting hats on, your strategist hats on, to say, what is the core problem with Pierre Poilievre before we jump into what the solution to Pierre Poilievre needs to be. So let's spend like at least a couple of minutes. And Shannon, maybe I'll start with you to give me like a problem definition. What does this week, is this just an inflamed version of the core problem? Is this a symptom of a larger problem and what we saw this week? How would you like to define the problem that we help solve for one Pierre Poilievre? And Carter, I'll give you a shake at it right after Shannon.
So in the summer of 2024, I guess, I was looking at some federal polling, and Pierre Poilievre was riding high. Justin Trudeau was generationally unpopular. And here we were looking at Pierre Poilievre's strengths and so on. And I saw even in that polling that women were identifying him as arrogant and doesn't, represent people like me. And it was more, there was some softness in the numbers when you looked at leadership attributes. And that is exactly what ended up being the problem through 2025.
Hmm.
The guy's a self-satisfied asshole, and women can sniff that out from a mile away.
They do.
So they do.
Yeah.
And
As a
so when you go
self-satisfied
in
asshole,
there,
I feel like
you
that's
know,
really
Someone in
important.
the same league and category.
Yeah.
with your, like you got your tea prescription just a little too high. Need to dial it down there, Pally.
She means T as in testosterone. Okay, keep going.
Okay, thank you. I was lost.
He just gives off this energy that he's too good to be told anything, that he's never going to change. And he's just the worst of the comments section come alive. And that is the vibe. Now, men apparently can have a higher
Stomach
tolerance
this.
for that sort of
Yeah.
horse shit than women do. But when an even bigger asshole came on the scene of Donald Trump, it became very clear how brittle and how brittle Mr. Poilievre was, and he could not change. So that's still his core problem. When you looked at, I watched Chris D'Entremont today give an interview to Rosemary Barton Live, where it was talking about how nobody had changed since the election. That the election had surfaced all of these problems that that people had identified for about a year and a half, maybe you owned it closer to 2 years now, had surfaced all of that, and yet nothing changed. Nothing changed. So the core of the problem for Mr. Poilievre is he is an asshole, and he needs to stop being an asshole to his own people in the first instance. Leave aside the public for a moment and talk about his own caucus and be nicer.
This November, the storm hits the stage. Wednesday, November 12th, Knox United Church, 7:30 p.m. The Strategist Podcast, unleashed, unfiltered, and live. One night only. Tickets starting at $30. Feel the heat, hear the shots, be in the room. StrategistLive.show.
Carter,
Yeah.
Shannon's given me a list, but at the top of the list, Shannon, is this fair to paraphrase? Is women, like the women problem for Pierre Poilievre is up front and center in terms of his electoral problem? Is that a fair description in part of what you're saying?
It's women and boomers, really, when you look at the data. But I mean, really, it's people who have who have an expectation of politics that people don't behave themselves like absolute jerks, and that's his electoral problem. But it is also his caucus management problem.
Carter, Shannon's put a lot here, and I want to let you have a shake at this as well. And I find it interesting, and I will comment that the angle of women is an angle that you have long held as a political strategy angle or a prism that folks who are running campaigns, seeking office, seeking re-election should be very mindful of, if not exclusively mindful of. I know you've talked about that on this podcast over the last many years. Are you, A, still a believer in that philosophy, and B, would that top your list of issues that Pierre Poilievre faces in your mind?
Well, I totally agree with Shannon, right? Pierre Poilievre is an asshole, and the people who pick it up the most are women. I think that women have a finely tuned sense of assholery for men, and they have to be just absolutely frank, it is essential for women to be able to pick out the assholes very quickly and very easily. And they do pick out the assholes easily and very quickly.
You mean like from a pure evolutionary perspective,
from
like
a
to be clear?
simple-
Like
yeah.
seriously though. Like seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you hang out with the better guys. Because we're better, and I'm throwing you and I in that, Zain. We're the better guys.
As you just admitted to everyone mere moments ago that you're a self-described, self-satisfied asshole. Okay.
It's true. It's
Also
true, but
flip-flopper, but okay, keep going. Yeah.
Still better than Pierre Poilievre.
Sure.
So what's fascinating about what Shannon has offered is she's pointed out that this is not a new problem. This is a 16, 18, 24 months. And my history with Pierre Poilievre goes back to 2000.
Decades-long problem.
I know Pierre Poilievre as an asshole from 2000. He's not, it's 25 years. This is not a new thing that he's developed. But I think that if we are going to solve the Pierre Poilievre problem, we have to solve the Pierre Poilievre problem from 25 years ago into into 6 to 8 weeks from now, when he's got his January review, and then another period of time when he is he's the leader that has to win over the electorate. My view is, let's do this in 2 phases. Let's look at it as a 6-month problem, or a 2-month problem, and then a 2-year problem, because I think that
or potentially 3.5-year problem, depending on when he gets to
whenever the election is. I'm going to call it 2 years just because it's easy. It's right in the middle. But it's how do I survive the immediate, and how do I survive long term? Those are the 2 big questions for Pierre Poilievre that I think that if I was being hired to analyze and create a solution for him, I'd say, okay, here's how we're going to solve the short term. We're fucked because we're losing people, and you're an asshole and nobody likes you, and you call on Jenny Byrne the way that a baby calls for its mommy. That's not the way it's supposed to happen. So let's go. Let's have some fun.
Hey, strategists are coming at you live this Wednesday, November 12th. The brains, the banter, the battle unleashed inside Knox United Church. One night only, 7:30 p.m. Feel the heat, hear the takes, be in the room when the mics go hot. Seats are moving fast, so grab yours now.
Shannon, do you like this frame? 2-month, 2-year? Is that like a reasonable frame for you in terms of timeline and what we're trying to solve, which is get him through the leadership review, and then Carter, your 2-year / 3.5-year whatever is unclear, but I guess because we don't necessarily know where he'll be, it's about making himself, to Shannon's point, palatable to that same electorate he'll need to face anytime between 2 to 3.5 years from now.
Yeah.
Make sense to you, Shannon?
Yes, and here's why. He has kind of a 2 problem between now and the leadership review, which is obviously keeping the party on side and keeping the caucus from bucking any more than they already have. I actually think that he's in better shape, and I've always maintained this, that like the leadership he's okay on, probably because the party membership is behind him. They like this vibe, the kind of new conservative coalition. But the danger zone, I think, where there's dragons for Mr. Poilievre is actually after January, and that's where he needs to keep his caucus together and even more, right? And that's where we might get Reform Act stuff or other things popping up. But they're kind of 2 different problems to solve, right? It's in the near term, it's the get through the budget, don't lose any more personnel between and make sure that party piece is in good shape. And then after January, it's kind of managing through the and that's when there might be more caucus that actually, especially if his numbers stay low, when he's got more danger ahead.
So I agree with the frame too, Carter, but inherently, and I think Shannon's hit it perfectly here, inherently in the 2-month strategy is a 2-week strategy, which is if Carney gets to a majority, then the 2-year strategy almost becomes irrelevant because he almost doesn't survive it just becomes not irrelevant, sorry. It becomes fundamentally different, I guess. To be charitable, it becomes fundamentally different with the 2-year strategy. So talk to me before we talk about 2 months. Let's start with the next 2 weeks, and that could include cleanup from what last week looks like, heading into this week as we record on Sunday, November 9th, heading into Monday the 10th, and Remembrance Day on Tuesday, just so people are anchored with the timelines we're talking about. Carter, as you talk about 2 months, start giving me some ideas around 2 weeks.
Well, the very, very first thing is to take actually a page out of Brian Mulroney's book of success with your caucus. That is pick up the telephone. Pick up the telephone, you call every single member of your caucus, and you have a 10, 15-minute conversation with them. It's going to take up the bulk of your next 2 weeks. Any free time that you thought you had, you're now making telephone calls. Any time that you were supposed to be in a meeting or supposed to be in a house, supposed to be doing something else, you're actually making telephone calls. You are making so many telephone calls, your fingers are going to bleed. But that's what you need to do, is take a page out of Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney, before we had the databases that we have now, he had a database of every single person, their wife's name, their children's ages, how old they were, what they liked, the sports that they played. And he would pick up the telephone on their anniversary and call them and wish them a happy anniversary, or on the wife's birthday, or on whatever. That was the rigor with which Brian Mulroney approached his caucus relationships. And because he was doing it every day, it was never overwhelming. Pierre Poilievre has to make it overwhelming. It has to be overwhelming today. He needs to sit down. He needs to go from east to west and make a full day of telephone calls every day for the next 2 weeks, just to make sure that everybody feels the love, not the love from Jenny Byrne, but from the love from the leader himself.
Folks, listen up. The Strategist podcast is going live Wednesday, November 12th at the historic Knox United Church. Doors at 7, and at 7:30, bam, the show is on. Be in the room when the sparks fly, the jokes land, and the strategy gets strategized. Tickets are as low as $30.
Jen, let me get to you in a second. Carter, what's the message? Does he lay out the stakes that majority territory is a death knell for all of us sort of thing? And how does he, without necessarily knowing where a lot of these folks stand, and he probably has good insight in terms of who the 3 to 5 other potential floor crossers are. So my question is, what's the overall message? And my sub-question is, what's the message to the 3 to 5 swing votes, the people that could leave? Let's assume they have the intel that the media does. And I certainly don't, but let's just assume that he has the intel the media does on who the other folks could be.
I would start off with two relatively simple messages. Number one, we can win together, right? We were so close to winning together. We can win together. You and I, working together, can win the next election. And number two, what can I do better? How can I better serve you? The servant leadership model of how can I serve you as a leader? And then, scratch notes out. Make sure that people hear you writing notes on cards so that they think that you're actually engaged. So you're not just kind of going through the motions, but you're actually saying, I think that the two messages are, we can win together. Together we can win. Apart we cannot. Together we can win, but I'm willing to do my part. What can I do better to be a better leader, both for you and for the country?
Shannon,
Those
jump in
conversations are only going to be genuine, though, if he front loads it with, there is not going to be retribution if you tell me the truth.
here.
And you need to be able to say what I did, what I have done in the last few months that you thought were mistakes. And he needs to be very upfront, and that's why he needs to sweeten it before he even has some of those conversations with some of the crankier ones, by giving them something and to keep them in, right? Whether it's, I'll come to your riding, I'll not come to your riding, as the case may be, or
well, when you look at leader poll numbers, like the party outpolls the leader. So like as funny as
by
tongue in cheek
far.
as that shit is, it's kind of
Yeah.
not, depending on what circumstances where their folks are up against.
Or I'll give you an opportunity to do more stuff regionally, like that. It's possible that if he had elevated Chris D'Entremont, for example, and let him do a little bit more of the Atlantic Canadian comms, that Chris D'Entremont wouldn't have had the kinds of complaints that he had about Andrew Scheer's presence, when he was acting leader in the House, about the some of the RCMP stuff. Like it's possible that some of these folks that are cranky in the caucus are actual, moderates, whatever that means in the Conservative Party of Canada anymore. But it is people who would like a different communication style and different focus, rather than talking about jailing their opponents. And so I think he needs to sweeten it. Carter's right that this was the playbook for Mulroney. It's why none of his caucus bucks, when Mulroney essentially left them a party that won 2 seats after
that historical.
the 93 election, right? But going into that, everybody knew they were headed for the iceberg, and nobody jumped ship. And what the big reason that is sort of lore in Canadian politics is because he commanded the people's loyalty, because he talked to them. But I think Poilievre needs to do a bit more than just talk to them. He needs to sweeten it first, because people are afraid of him in the caucus. And if they say, oh, well, here's what you could do better, they'll probably get, metaphorically kicked in the teeth with a demotion or like getting Mean Girls frozen out or because we know that stuff's happening in there.
Calgary, are you ready? The Strategist Podcast goes big, loud, and live Wednesday, November 12th. The mics drop inside the historic Knox United Church. 2 chairs, 1 night, unlimited hot takes. Doors at 7, show at 7:30. Tickets now as low as $30.
Carter, Shannon brings up a really good point. I think one you've talked about historically, which is we've seen in political history that politics isn't always a selfish transactional act. That there are leaders that poll low that are not destined for victory, but their teammates stick with them, right? Their teammates are like, I'm loyal to you, man. Like, we'll ride or die together. I get it, right? Like, I'm not leaving you high and dry. We've seen that historically, despite the rap that politics gets of being extremely transactional, of people biting themselves, stabbing, each other in the back and kind of, jumping ship. Yes, that is the more commonly told story, but that loyalty piece is really interesting. I would challenge, though, that Pierre Poilievre, Carter, has really promoted himself as, we're asking him to flex muscles that he's A, not used, but B, we do not know if he has. We know he can make the calls because he's done that historically. That's been well reported, that people have talked about that. However, as it relates to being more than a transactional leader that can get through point 1 of your message, which is we can win together, I have a hard time kind of seeing Pierre Poilievre add sweetness, both in terms of rhetoric, but also in terms of roles and responsibilities for anyone that already isn't in his very, very tight orbit. What do you kind of, I don't mean to be skeptical of what Shannon's saying, but I'm trying to right size the advice to the guy that we have here.
No, but the guy you have here is losing, right? And I think that this is one of the things that I was trying to get across to people is, if you want to continue to behave the way that you've been behaving, you can lose the way that you've been losing. That's fine. And that's what's going to happen with Pierre Poilievre. If he doesn't foundationally change things, he is going to be in trouble. And it starts, Shannon made up a really good point early on. It's circles of influence, right? We always I think of circles of influence as just kind of like a target. The bullseye is your close set of advisors. Pierre Poilievre does not have a problem with his close set of advisors. They are loyal to him. They have always been loyal to him. It is the next target out, this caucus that we've got a problem in. The next one after that is caucus staff, the board, all of those kinds of people who are insiders. And then you get to general population, members of the party. Members of the party think he walks on water. He may survive his leadership review on nothing more than he's Pierre Poilievre and he's a fighter. And I love fighters. But you don't get to hold on to the reins of power by only having that particular sphere of influence.
And I agree.
So you've got to change.
I also think that the 2-week problem might be harder for him than the 2-month problem. Not to telegraph what we're talking about in the 2 months, but the membership probably like him more than perhaps the caucus does right now in some cases, with the prospects of Pierre Poilievre. But that all being said, Carter, I want to test another thing Shannon's put out there. If you're Pierre Poilievre, what are you willing to give to these folks that you're talking to? Are you adding any sweeteners? And what are you willing to give away? In the sense that what are you currently doing? Staffers, strategies, people around you, those sort of things that you're willing to kind of say, I will dispose of this sort of thing. How do you deal with those things? Because these are also, 100 plus people who feel like they should be the leader and are not coming at this completely naive to the world of politics themselves. How does he deal with those sort of inbound requests and sort of the negotiation of what change looks like in the moment within the confines of these calls?
Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m., Knox United Church. The Strategist Podcast is going live. Tickets start at just $30. We'll sell you the whole pew, but you'll only need the edge. Grab your seat now at strategistlive.show. The Strategist.
Well, for the most part, I think most of the change is going to be listen to me, right? I'm hearing what's on the ground in my neighborhood. I'm hearing what's on the ground in my riding. I need you to listen to me. I'm also a very talented political operative. I need you to listen to me. You listen too much to your political circle. It's going to be one of the biggest pieces of feedback. That is the same feedback that every leader gets. You listen too much to your political circle and not enough to me. If I could be in
what
your
if it gets more
circle,
specific? Fire Jenny Byrne.
You know what? He was supposed to fire Jenny Byrne after the last election. He didn't do it. You know where he'd be right now if he'd done it? In a much better spot. because Jenny Byrne knows how to only to hit nails with hammers. She hit nails with hammers, and she's got Andrew Scheer, who knows how to hit nails with hammers, and she's got, well, I can't remember the name of the whip, who knows how to hit
Alyssa Landsman,
Yeah.
Chris Warkentin.
all of these
they're
people
all...
who know how to hit nails with hammers, but that's not what this situation demands. This situation doesn't demand a nail being hit by a hammer. So they need to rethink and change the way that things are unfolding in the caucus. So they need to say, if Jenny Byrne needs to be the one who goes, if that's the sweetener that they need to do, then bye-bye, Jenny. You're making your money
offering
anyways.
it. That's what I'm trying to get. You're able, Shannon. Are you
I'm
offering
not
it too?
offering it. I'm waiting to see if it needs to be done.
It's a trading ship accessible to you across these calls over the next 2 weeks. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is the firing of Jenny Byrne something that you would be willing to propose to Pierre Poilievre? Let's say we're writing him this memo to say, in the next 2 weeks, this needs to be on the table, my dude.
Oh, I think it has to be almost public repudiation, right? Because like she was not hired. Like it needs to be leaked out somehow that Jenny has been absolutely put out on the ice floe, right? She's gone. And if there needs to be one or two others, like leak it out via Politico or whoever, right? You don't need to make podium art about it or
They're not podiums, they're lecterns.
but you do need to make it clear that there's been a break from the old ways.
You'd be open to that. What else do we need to do in the next 2 weeks, Carter? The phone calls, the message we got. Oh, and I do want to revisit before I jump there. Carter, what's the message to the folks that you know that are the ones that are looking to cross? You have the intel. Do you deviate from your 2 point, Shannon? I want to come Sam to you in a second.
No, I think that the primary message, the emphasis in that case becomes the Conservatives are going to win the next election, right? We have won the popular vote. We've been up by 20 points. Canada is ready for a change, and we will be that change, but we can only be that change together.
Yes. Shannon, what are you thinking about as it relates to message for those that are the potential floor crossers?
Well, there's going to be a change of government. You're going to find yourself in opposition again on a team that you can't trust. They don't have your best interests in mind. They're using you. And so you're better off over here with the team that you've been fighting with for the last 10 years in opposition.
Carter, anything else to add to the 2 week category of tactics or strategies before we move on to now in January in Calgary for his leadership review?
No, I think that's it.
Shannon, anything on your end?
I would switch up, as I think I said last week, I would switch up some critic portfolios, some house assignments, just keep people busy. And the other big thing is if there's anything right now that they've got in their files, this is where Jenny Byrne could come in handy. On Liberals, if they've got any oppo, anything like that, anything that's going to make the team feel good, if they drop a bomb or two on the Liberals, that would be a good time for that. Because nothing focuses the mind in a caucus like who the real fucking enemy is. And that can be very helpful to sort of galvanize the troops and bring them over the ridge altogether. And you do really feel like if you can score a point or two on the government, it feels very, very good. Failing that, a nice big fundraiser, or a couple of fundraising touches in some of the more malcontented people's ridings, or directing some party resources to make that happen, even if they don't want the leader, but just kind of shoring up. Always within a caucus, there's people who are cranky about, or who got the leader's time, who didn't, some of these kinds of things. Just papering some of that over would be helpful. Do that right now.
And Shannon, can I start with you on the 2 month strategy, the now to January? Just start with a few building blocks in your mind in terms of things we need to think about, things he needs to think about. What would you be kind of leading that part of the document with?
Well, to Carter's point, I saw the Abacus today that showed that 70% of CPC voters thought the sun shone out of Pierre Poilievre's ass.
Hmm.
So, they're fine. I think your party membership is fine. I would still be a little concerned if you know who were these 3 to 5 to however many people who were wobbly were. I would be concerned about. I would be looking under the hood a little bit about how many members they have, how many delegates they're sending, some of that kind of stuff. And I would be just making sure that I had that floor. And obviously, I would, be putting organizing resources to making sure that the floor is that it's not going to shake underneath you, right? There's no earthquakes there. I think that's probably the easy part. The other part would be, making sure that you don't have any more walkers, because you might after the budget.
That's a good point. The budget isn't it is the one in front of us, but it's not the only reason and only timeline someone could walk on.
Wednesday. It's the live taping of the Strategist Podcast. One night only. Wednesday, November 12th at the iconic Knox United Church. The mics go hot at 7:30 p.m. Tickets start at just $30. Grab yours now.
Carter, can you build on this? Shannon's talking about membership. She's talking about the 3 to 5 wobbly folks in terms of what you need to do with them. Make sure the floor crossings don't happen. Understand who's trying to organize elsewhere. What else are you adding to this bucket of 2-month strategy for Pierre Poilievre?
Well, I think that I'd be making sure that the direct mail and the emails that are going out even more so in my voice now. I want people to feel like I'm communicating with them. I would say to the fundraisers, let's use my voice more. Let's make sure that my voice is going out. I'd say to the people writing all the emails and the messaging, the leader, this is a leadership opportunity. Let's keep me front and center. And I would start doubling down on videos. The membership loves the videos. I don't remember the last video I saw of Pierre Poilievre really rocking it, right? Let's get the old Pierre up and get him out in front of a video camera again. Get him doing the things that we loved him doing before, right? The members eat that shit up. So there's lots of things wrong with the Carney government, not the least of which is that the central premise has been that he can deal with Trump, and he's failing. So get up and start throwing some haymakers. If they like the fighter, then become the fighter.
One of the things that he did really well, obviously, up to and even during the campaign, which we know is his famous rallies. I would not say a rally is a good idea, but I would say that maybe that format, in order to generate that content, might be a good idea in a smaller, a more town hall type thing, maybe, but have it a bit. Have your ability to showcase maybe a softer Poilievre in between the haymakers. He still has to do those for the base. There's no question, but there's got to be ways to give him a bit of personal narrative or other delivery, some other content that he can, in a town hall atmosphere, be a little bit more empathetic. Right, like on costs, on affordability, on unemployment, on those kinds of things. Be a bit, like, soften those edges a little bit. There, it doesn't have to just be hang Trudeau up by his toenails at the rally like it was for 2 years.
Was it ever? Jesus Christ, yeah.
It really was. But there are ways to script him with a little bit more human content. And you can put him in rooms of people because they're really good at bringing the people out of the woodwork. And so I would think about doing that in a sort of maybe smaller, more town hall-y kind of thing, or something like that, where, obviously these things are well controlled, but it feeds the base on one hand, but it allows you to maybe start test driving new messages on the other.
Strategists, live and unfiltered. The Strategist Podcast is coming to you like never before. Wednesday, November 12th, Knox United Church. Bell time, 7:30 p.m. Feel the heat, feel the crowd, and feel the arguments fly. Tickets start at just $30. Be there or hear about it later. The Strategist, live and in your face.
Carter, I'm going to walk you through a series of considerations on the 2-month side of things, and I want both of you to kind of comment on them in terms of severity of risk and whether you'd plan for them or not or execute on them. Let me throw this one out. A opposing force of a opposing leader or leadership contender starts organizing heading into January. Now, all we've heard from the Conservatives is that that's not happening. I can list to you a bunch of factors that might, expedite something like that. Risk level for Poilievre, concern level for you if you're helping him out. Let's put a name to it, right? The Corey Tonight organization of replacing Pierre Poilievre. Not saying that I know that exists. In fact, the opposite. I do not know if that exists. But I'm giving a name, so a credible name, who's organizing a leadership contender. Maybe that person is known, not even known in terms of what it is, but it's get Pierre out because we want in within you, because we do believe that the party should and will win the next election. We just don't believe Pierre's the guy to do it. Heading into January, how big of a concern is that for you, Carter, from your strat planning?
Massive. I mean, we've been watching leader after leader after leader get taken out in their leadership reviews. First of all, you see, the whisper campaign has enough power in it that you don't have to have the no committee or the yes committee or the whatever committee. You can have just a few people, whispering that, they're not going to support the leader in the ballot box, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. Bonnie Crombie was just the most recent one, where she's completely blindsided by the lack of support in the room because everybody was saying to her, "Don't worry, you've got my support." I think Pierre Poilievre could find himself in a very similar situation, where people tell him that don't worry, you've got my support. And then, push comes to shove and he's shoved out the door, especially when you only need a few percentage. Like, 65%, is that enough to stay anymore? Like, I don't even know what the number is. Shannon probably knows better the number because Shannon's smarter than I am. But, what is the number to stay if you're Pierre Poilievre, and how do you make sure that that's
I've
not...
asked this question before, and let me ask it again. Who is best advantaged of getting that number and socializing that number out right now? Is it Pierre Poilievre and his side, or is it any opposing forces?
Any opposing force has a much better chance in a guerrilla warfare, right? If it's a guerrilla style,
including defining what the bar Poilievre should reach, 90,
absolutely,
85, whatever it is.
I think that they have a really strong chance of knocking off. Like, let's say that he's going to get 85%, with no organizational structure, right? 85%, I think, is just, it'd be great. Everybody would kill for 85% in today's leadership world. 85% would be golden. If we start at 85% and you add an organizer, you add someone who's organizing against you, it drops down to 70, 66, 67 really fucking fast. And I think I don't think it even needs to be someone who's organizing so much as a whisper campaign that starts around the convention, around the leadership review, and all hell breaks loose. Like, this is I don't think you need to have an organizing campaign is the answer to your question, Zain. I don't even think it needs to be that organized.
High risk, and even higher risk considering doesn't need to be formalized. Shannon, do you agree with Carter in terms of a opposing force to your leadership? Not just the naysayers who may cross, which is a different consideration I'll talk about in a second. But how concerned would you be if you're helping Pierre Poilievre out around, we have a new leader in mind, organizing force?
I would be quite concerned for exactly the reason that I flagged earlier with the phone calls, which is that everybody's going to lie to him because they're scared of a group of people who clearly keep Oppo files on their own people and are ready to deploy them if they go offside. Right? This was essentially what we heard happened with Jenneru. And so if they've got an Oppo file on him, they've got an Oppo file on all kinds of people internally. And, obviously when you vet your own people, you have some stuff on, but it sounds to me like they were keeping pretty good tabs and more than vetting their own candidates and their own caucus members. So if that's the case, you're not gonna tell them, and you're not going to openly do anything. You're just going to register your disapproval, and there's going to start to be whispers, and that's probably enough. If there's enough of those members of parliament that feel that maybe they might be next, or that they're not being listened to, or that it's a dead end, and they're not going to win with Mr. Poilievre, because Carter's first sentence is actually the key here. If his numbers stay as shitty as they are, the whispering could start into January, but there's almost not enough time for it. I think it's after January when people start to get really skittish, because his numbers are so terrible. They could improve, but even in the 2 months, that might not be enough time for a real movement other than whispers. And he might get 80, 85, but even that's pretty tepid, actually. But I think it's after January when his numbers stay shitty and caucus gets more restive.
The Strategists live! Wednesday, November 12th, the podcast that body slams politics is coming at you live! The Strategists! One night only inside the legendary Knox United Church. The bell rings at 7:30 p.m.
I'll jump to the 2-year strategy in a moment here. I do want to ask you both to scenario plan one element of this for me that I think could change the game, which is a subcategory of the 2-month strategy to January. But that 2 months now has Mark Carney having a majority government, Shannon. How does
then I think he's done.
Okay, interesting. So give me your analysis, which I'm curious about. Expand on what you just said, but still, let's help a brother out. How does he change anything we put on this smorgasbord here of tactics and strategies if Carney has his majority by January, which is not out of the question, to be clear, as we record tonight?
I think he's got to be done, right?
Well, it depends on if it drops from the NDs or if it drops from the Liberals, I guess.
And the General number doesn't count as we until spring, but there could be more to that saga. Who knows if that story's completely written.
I just think these guys turf their leaders, like PDQ, one and you're done, right? And this is sort of a special situation. If the government felt that if it's 3.5 years, you actually think that people are going to sit with a leader who's 20 some odd points behind in his favorabilities.
I mean, I
have comes up to 10 behind.
I have thoughts here. I'm curious Carter, what you think. Like I have thoughts, but I'll step aside. I'm curious if Carter, we're in the subcategory of Carney's majority is now in place, even if it's a seat or two, and you might tell me that that's actually materially different if it's a seat or two. But tell me what the Poilievre January strategy needs to look like, if different from what you folks have put on the board, what the two of you put on the board, if Carney's got the majority.
Well, I think that it's functionally still a minority, right? Because every backbencher's now got the power of taking down the government just by shifting their support, right? So it's functionally still a minority, even if it's a majority. Do you know what I mean? Like anybody can choose to change their vote.
In the Poilievre universe, you think, though?
Well, I think that that's more than just spin. I think that it would be really difficult for Mark Carney to govern as though he has a majority, just because he's got one extra seat. I don't think it's fatal for Pierre. I think that it is.
You don't, eh?
I think it's devastating for him.
Okay, fair.
But I do think that the Conservatives, while they do throw away their leaders with alarming disregard for what they're definitely the definition of "what have you done for me lately" party. Pierre Poilievre has a special grip on this party and has been afforded so much just by the virtue of how much he won by. This is a guy who dominated, and I think that he's still going to be a force because he knows the membership better than everybody else. He represents the membership better than anybody else.
I'll let Shannon respond to this. Carter, anything you would change strategically or tactically?
No.
Shannon, your thoughts on this to close us out. Carter thinks it's devastating, not fatal. Anything you would change strategically or tactically, even if your analysis is that you think he's done as an outcome of this leadership review, does this give Poilievre more latitude to do Hail Marys? Does it give him more latitude to try to swing for the fences? Anything you'd suggest he do differently if Carney's in majority territory?
Well, because he's still like his personal his favorability is so bad compared to Carney. He's 20 points or more, depending on the pollster, back of Carney on best prime minister.
Yes,
and what ends up happening over the course of a campaign is the party number and the leader number come into alignment more, right? And if one is way above their party, it comes back down. If they're way below their party, the party comes back down because people look at the leaders, right? Or sorry, it goes back up, like they go up if they're like, and Carney had this,
The
right?
leader
That
numbers set the pace. They pace set.
Yeah, they set the pace. And so the leader numbers are what matters here. And his leader numbers are in the toilet and have been for some time. And he has not, to my mind anyway, shown any willingness to fix those leader numbers. So, I mean, if it's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, if he wants to hold on to his job, he also needs to invest some money in focus groups and in quantitative and all the rest of it to figure out, how do I talk about myself and how do others maybe talk about me? Not just my wife, right? When they wheeled her out to make him look more normal during the campaign. I mean, that might be part of it, but there has to be more people who think he's fine to be around, and right now, like there's like 3 or 4 people who think that he's nice and nobody else wants to talk to him, or much less make him prime minister. So he's got to focus on that and invest in that and show Canadians, even if it feels like eating crow a little bit, that he heard them on that.
This autumn, ask your calendar about The Strategists live Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m. at historic Knox United Church. Tickets from just $30 at strategistlive.show. Side effects may include sudden bursts of laughter, heightened insight, and unrelenting note-taking. Not for everyone.
Shannon's already getting us started on the 2-year, and I like that, Shannon. This is helpful because if I'm to summarize, Carter, in a word, the 2-week strategy is stay. You're my caucus, stay with me, right? We can win, we can do whatever. It's whatever it takes to stay. The 2-month strategy is for the membership, but it's ultimately, you may argue with me on this, it's Poilievre's, you're getting more of the same. He's not changing, sort of thing, right? He's bringing back the pugilist that that is still popular. There are tweaks that both of you have acknowledged he needs to make, soften the edges, but it's not, the 2-month strategy, tell me if I'm wrong, is not a renew, change, wholesale, new dude strategy. It is a strategy of bringing that back to the people who love it the most, which is the membership who are going to be present, mindful of the opposition, mindful of your scenario on majority.
Yeah, it's use tactics that
brought you here, sort of
that
thing.
brought you there. Okay, right? Remind them who you were.
Now, I'm going to venture a guess that the 2-year strategy is different than that. Carter, can you get us started? Because I think Shannon's version of it is, but I want to give you a fair shake to maybe rebut that if yours actually does extend organically from a 2-month strategy.
For me, it extends dramatically differently because now I want you to be likable. I want you to be the likable fighter, right? And there, over the course of history,
happy
there's been
warrior,
lots of,
as we've called the composite profile in politics.
Yeah, I mean, Nahad Nenshi. I've talked about how negative his campaign was in 2010.
Happy warrior.
He was very, very negative, but everybody liked him. He was a nice guy. Everybody thought he was a good guy, and he was going to be a great leader, a great mayor. And because of that, they forgave him some of the techniques and tactics that he had used. I think that Pierre Poilievre needs to be more likable, and he needs to. Women need to like him. They can't have alarm bells going off when they look at him. They are just far too influential, and they will shift all of the battlegrounds against him. That's one of the reasons. There's so many examples. Kevin Taft in Alberta, who was just an unlikable character who couldn't play against Ralph Klein, even in Ralph Klein's, weakest days. Was Klein? Yeah, no, it was Stelmach. It was Stelmach that Taft was against.
And Klein. In the 04. Taft was leader in 04.
Okay. Thank you. Saved me.
Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m. The Strategist Podcast goes live inside historic Knox United Church. We'll sell you the whole pew, but you'll only need the edge.
Likability. Shannon, what else are you going to add to the mix? Carl, I'll come back to you in a sec.
Well, I think that's honestly, that's exactly what it is. But also, I mean, it's so tough because of the Trump stuff, right? But he's got to figure out a way to be tough on the things that people want him to be tough on today, which is different than the things that they wanted him to be tough on at this
Yeah.
time last year. Uh, and maybe some of the affordability and crime stuff, is coming back up in terms of issue salience, but. Um, you still can't look at the guy because Trump ain't going anywhere unless it's Attack of the Cheeseburgers until another 3 years. So you've got another election cycle potentially with the Orange Menace, and so he needs to figure out a way to be not just a happy warrior, right, but also be strong in the way, because people ultimately think that they might be a little bit out on how they're not really out on how Carney and maybe the left is dealing with Trump now, but they certainly don't think that Poilievre will be strong on that issue at all. They think he'll in fact be weak by genuflecting at the altar of fascism. And so, that he needs to figure out a way to be strong there, right, as well. And, his negativity is so, it has so much venom to it. It's so much personalized venom that you feel like he's the one, like, and it works because everybody hated Trudeau, so they were just like channeling through
Especially at the end, right?
right? But
right.
now it just feels like mad for mad's sake. You almost got that out of Don Drummond, when he in his sort of floor crossing press conference, he was saying, it was just so negative. It was so, it didn't seem constructive. He needs to figure out how to talk about issues in a way that doesn't sound like he's got a personal axe to grind, that he's going to war for you, right, with you, that he understands what's happening to you, and it's not he's almost made the fight about him personally, right, and that can never be the case, because the protagonist always has to be the voter. It can't be the politician.
Well, let me present one little thesis, and you guys
do
tell
your
me
own
if I'm
thesis,
crazy.
and I've got a crazy thesis to throw at your way too, both of you after this. Go, Carter.
Pierre Poilievre was only likable when compared to Justin Trudeau. He has never been likable in any other context. So as long as he needs to be likable against Carney, or he is done.
I have a different consideration for both of you, which is both of you put likability as the core of his strategy for the 2-year to 3.5-year category.
Mm-hmm.
Your paper gets sent back and say, nice try, he's not willing to do it. You have to work within those parameters. Carter, you've had to work within these parameters all the time. Shannon, you've had to work within these parameters all the fucking time. Take me a step further. If likability is not on the table, and you can give me your analysis, you could tell me, if likability is not on the table, this guy will never be prime minister. I'll happily hear those remarks, but I'm also wanting to challenge you a bit to say, let's say that's not on the table, because it's very likely that's not on the fucking table. Even with attempts, they've looked weird in the past. He tried them. Remember the fucking strange smiles? Right. So let's say likability, let's just say at some point we take it off the table because it's working so fucking poorly that we decide, okay, we need plan B. Help me construct plan B here. I appreciate everything you're saying. I'm going to challenge it. Who wants to go?
Plan B would be to surround him with people who are likable.
Okay.
Surround him, like it's one thing to be.
You're not giving up on likability at all. You don't think the prick can win. You don't think Prick
can't win. Prick can't win, but Prick surrounded by, like, his wife seemed to be human. So let's make sure that his wife is more visible.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that he's got at least a couple of advisors who go on Power and Politics and Power Play or whatever it's called, and make it, come across as human beings as opposed to absolute assholes. Bring Michelle Rempel-Gardner out of retirement and put her back up as a human, as a human being representing him, instead of
so you empower kindness and hospitality, whatever those terms are. But
Landsman is a female version of him, right? The most unlikable, unhuman version of a sitting member of parliament that we've ever seen. You can't put two of them in the same room. You got to, if you've got one of them, then everybody else, all the other cyborgs have to be put into cold storage. You have to surround them with likable people, period.
Like, and why the fuck we've got Andrew Scheer doing anything? Like, it would seem to me that Canadians have already passed judgment on him in a big way. I do not understand. I mean, I guess it's loyalty and that you know, is prized over political skill, right? I would just add to what Carter said that, and I think those are all really good points. You might be right, Zain, that likability is not necessarily always the number one thing. I give you Stephen Harper was prime minister for 9 years in this country, right? He's not exactly, you know, a guy that you wanted to go have a beer with, unless you brought your Excel spreadsheets with you. But what the voters have to get the sense of is that, and I heard who's the trans woman who's the congresswoman from Delaware? She's like kind of a moderate, Sarah something or other McBride. She was saying, you know, voters have two questions about you. The second question is, what do you think about things, right? The issues or whatever. But the first question is, do you like me?
Do you like me, the voter?
Right?
That's right.
The voter. Does this politician like me? Do they have affinity for me? Or are they somewhere trying to elevate themselves above me or yelling at me or talking past me or want to be smarter than me or do they like me? And, you know, and Harper, for all of his faults, you know, he inherited the financial crisis, some of these things, right? That like people were like, oh, okay, he's got my back. He likes me. Right. And that might be the piece for Poilievre, right? Like, think about other people for once in your life, buddy. For a hot second, the existence of other people is a real thing, and find common cause with them. Maybe channel that. Less so like of like I'm nice guy, I like puppies, whatever, and more think about how do you communicate how you like people, you empathize with them, you want to be on their side, you want to hang out with them, you want to talk to them.
This Wednesday night, November 12th, Knox United Church becomes ground zero for the live taping of The Strategists. One night, one stage, one shot. Be there at 7:30 p.m. when doors blow open and the mics go hot.
I'm going to propose a theory to you to round us out on this episode. And you tell me the holes in it, and you tell me if there's any strengths in it. Pierre Poilievre, in the long term, the 2-year, is actually running back the same playbook. Here's what I mean. He doesn't care about the external environment at all. He continues to be a prick. Let Carney get his win on Trump. Let Carney sour on himself. Be pugilist against Carney. But do one thing that you did exceptionally well that I still don't think Pierre Poilievre gets enough credit for, which is see into the future. Pierre Poilievre was the first person on, and we were making fun of him, you and I, Carter, on when he did that lumber video on inflation. He was the first guy that brought up cost of living, and he saw into the future. It's a tough task, but if you're not likable, Pierre Poilievre, you better be able to look into the fucking future. And what if that is the strategy for Pierre Poilievre over the course of the next 2.5 years? Generate, find, do whatever you need to, find the next big thing to rally this country around that you are first and on the right side of, because you've got really no other path with Carney because you're not a good fit. Trump, you're not a good fit. Likability, we've seen it, you're not a good fit. Tell me if there's any value in what I've put on the table, Carter. Tell me what the holes are.
I mean, how good is your Ouija board? Like to me, it is just
to predict.
It's.
I mean, there's
incomprehensible.
He did it unbelievably impressively once, so I'm not asking him to kind of like maybe twice is too much, but you keep going here. Lightning in a bottle. You might not give him the credit that he deserves.
It's not a strategy. It's throwing dice.
You think that's what he did with inflation? Like I think to be able to address this strategy, we have to understand what he did.
I think he threw the dice and they came up aces.
I tend to give him more credit than that. But interesting, like I'll accept it. I'm asking in good faith, Shannon, your thoughts on this path for Pierre Poilievre.
Well, it doesn't take a fucking rocket psychologist to figure out that cost of living affordability, even at that time, right, when people were trying to book their summer vacations in 2021, I remember, and people, just talking about how expensive it was compared to prior or in 22, compared to, 21 or 20. So for sure, there's that. And you can see that affordability is not going away anytime soon, right? There's been a bit of softening of interest rates and stuff, but housing, mortgage isn't going to change. The grocery store is not, going to go down in price. For Christ's sakes, my wages are stagnant, or a lot of people's, right? Like that's the calculation for people. So that part is going to get worse. So sure, you can predict the future on that housing affordability. Probably lights mattering of crime.
Let's just come out of left field. I hate to throw this out, but as a real world example, immigration. Let's just say he throws that out and says makes the entire thing about immigration.
Except the Liberals have completely taken that off the table now, right? And so the thing that he had was an explanation of why it's the government's fault that lumber's too expensive. Right? When it was demonstrably not Justin Trudeau's fault. It wasn't the fucking carbon tax. It wasn't anything that came out of a federal budget that made lumber more expensive. And same goes for, trying to buy a bag of chips in the grocery store or anything else. It wasn't Justin Trudeau's fault, but he had a convenient cudgel that the Liberals did not take out of his hand. He was coming at them with the nail bat of the carbon tax every day, all day, because he had a reason why you could blame the government. Right now, he doesn't have a reason to blame the government. The problems are obvious, and they're going to remain obvious. But he needs, and everywhere he's reaching, the government is just, thank you very much, and taking the nail bat out of his hand, right? Whether it's carbon tax, or whether it's immigration, or whether it's, we'll see what happens with housing or defense or any of these other things. They've neutralized him on every explanation for your woes. So finding things that will rile people up, that will make people want to get rid of the government, that's where he needs to look into the future on what is the government's fault. What can I plausibly blame the government for? Even though he was lying his face off on the carbon tax, it was still plausible because it was one thing that was new, right?
I just don't know that anybody's that good. To be able to do it once is a really impressive parlor trick.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
Most of us live in the present, not in the future.
This Wednesday, the doors to Knox United blow open and the strategy room goes live. Podcast that takes no prisoners. The Strategist live taping Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m. Knox United Church. Tickets as low as $30 at strategistlive.show. Get in, get loud.
Speaking of the future, Wednesday, Carter. Oh, sorry, we're not promoting it.
No,
we're not promoting it. It is
we've been
a live
really
show
good about it,
of
really
epic
disciplined.
No, we've been extremely disciplined.
This Wednesday, the doors to Knox United blow open and the strategy room goes live. Podcast that takes no prisoners. The Strategist live taping Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m. Knox United Church. Tickets as low as $30 at strategistlive.show. Get in, get loud.
And with that, we're going to leave it there. That's a wrap on episode 1892 of The Strategist. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon Phillips, Stephen Carter, and we shall see you next time.
This Wednesday, the doors to Knox United blow open and the strategy room goes live. Podcast that takes no prisoners. The Strategist live taping Wednesday, November 12th, 7:30 p.m. Knox United Church. Tickets as low as $30 at strategistlive.show. Get in, get loud.